India. And when we come back, you're going to meet some of the other stakeholders as far as this particular campaign is concerned. Welcome back. You're watching Clean Up India, the CNN-IBN campaign that's putting health and sanitation in focus. Now, just the way our Indian cities are growing, many would say it's essentially a paradigm of growth that's unsustainable. Our systems are simply not being able to cope with the amount of waste we are generating. So does the civil society, does the government, do the NGOs, does the corporate indeed have a role when it comes to these issues? And if so, what really is this role? Joining me in this segment is a very prolific panel. I'm being joined by Rohini Nilekani. She's the founder chairperson of Aragyam, a foundation she set up with her personal wealth to work on issues of water and sanitation. I'm also being joined by Kiran Majumdar Shaw, the chairman and managing director of Biocon, also the head of BPAC, the Bangalore Political Action Committee. Rajeev Kher of Seraplast is joining me from Pune. It's a company that sets up and maintains portable toilets. And finally, Urvashi Prasad is also here on the panel. She has a great body of work as far as this sector is concerned, and she's currently doing research on water, sanitation and hygiene education initiatives in collaboration with central and state government. Kiran Majumdar Shaw, I'd like to begin with you, because we all remember it was a festering civic issue, those mounds of garbage lying on Bangalore's roads and the inertia that the civic administration displayed that led many like you to set up BPAC to try and influence politics and governance. My question is, at the end of all of this, do you believe it's been a successful model, and what's your learning been?
Well, I must confess it hasn't succeeded to the extent we wanted it to, because I think the efforts are very half-hearted. I think generally speaking, most municipal corporations have a sort of a knee-jerk reaction to crises like this that we faced in the past. And I think basically there needs to be a much more serious understanding of what waste, garbage, or the lack of managing garbage and waste creates in terms of health hazards, in terms of epidemics, in terms of general, deterioration in health across civic society. So I think that's what really is the recognition we need.
At the end of it, we look often at water or waste management issues really as the government's business, so to speak. And any initiative like yours, and I'm sure perhaps BPAC would have experienced it at some point in time, that governments can tire you out.
First and foremost, the government does control a lot of waste collection and waste disposal. And unless we basically, engage with the government on both these aspects, there's very little we can do. So right now, as a civic organization, BPAC has decided that it will confine itself to waste management where the government is involved in a minimal way.
Kiran Majumdar Shaw, at the start of the show, one of the panelists here in Delhi spoke about how our lakes, our rivers are actually becoming like drains. Is there a realization that efforts like yours can't be just possibly only about the Bangalore garbage in a sense? It has to be about a whole host of issues. It has to have a holistic approach. It needs to talk about rejuvenation of your lakes. It needs to talk about the entire ecosystem, restoring the stormwater drain network, etc.
Well, what we have seen is that there are a lot of small efforts, engaged in by, parts of civic society, by individuals, by corporates. So all this is really sort of bringing some attention on the need for restoring our lakes, cleaning up our water bodies. But there needs to be a political will to take this to a much greater extent. I think there is a lot to be done. But you cannot rely on private sector to do all of this.
Okay, let me now bring in Urvashi and Rajeev here. The two are connected in a sense because Urvashi helped Seraplast and Rajeev design an innovative slum sanitation project. And one realizes sanitation is an unkind world in a sense. But Rajeev, my question is portable toilets versus fixed toilets, or portable toilets replacing fixed toilets. I'm guessing that's really not going to happen.
Right. So what we're doing actually is that we're getting people used to a toilet, and our scope is for temporary for migrant labor, and it's in places where toilets can't be built. So when you can't build a toilet, they rather use a portable toilet than use the outdoors. And we don't believe that a portable toilet can replace a fixed toilet, but it definitely is a great interim measure to protect people, and also for the environment, and as well as for the safety and dignity of people.
You know, whether portable or fixed toilets, I think one thing is for certain, that water and sanitation need to go hand in hand. So in some ways, providing a toilet is simply half the job done.
Yes. Yes, I completely agree with you. I mean, building a toilet is only half the job done. You need to have a proper mechanism where the waste is evacuated, the waste is disposed of properly. So a portable toilet is great to start with. I mean, you put a portable toilet, and we have these evacuation trucks which are specially designed to automatically evacuate the waste and disposes of into a sewage treatment plant where it can be treated properly, and it doesn't go out into the open. So a portable toilet is a solution for one part of it, and then you have a restroom which is built up for another part of it, and then of course you have the waste mechanisms. You know, in congested areas are different, where they have drain lines it's different. So you know, you need to look at different types of products for the entire the urban areas.
You know, it's interesting you say that, Rajeev, and Urvashi, I want you to respond to that, because whether it's rural or the urban poor, people have different challenges and very conflicting priorities. We may actually enter a slum space thinking sanitation may be the big issue, but people's requirements in that area may be very different. For instance, clean drinking water.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because often, you know, we go into communities and we go in with a sanitation project or a water project, and that's not the greatest perceived need in that community. Until we really address what they believe is their greatest need, we're certainly not going to get adoption of other services. So what we've done in such cases is we've tried to involve multiple stakeholders. So we definitely work with the local governments, because they are an absolutely critical stakeholder. But we also work with the NGOs, we work with private enterprises, and we try to put together a multi-stakeholder collaboration in that area, which can address the very diverse needs that people have. Because no one organization or even the government can necessarily address people's varying needs all by themselves.
You know, this government has a 2019 target of Swachh Bharat. My question is, what do you believe this government could do where the others have faltered, especially when it comes, let's say, to the allocation of funds?
You know, I think the government schemes in terms of, you know, what they state on paper are very comprehensive. They allocate a lot of funds to sanitation. They prioritize girls when it comes to sanitation. So they make all the right noises on paper. I think in a country like India, which has so much scale, so much diversity, they do face a lot of problems when they're trying to implement these schemes. And I think what needs to really be strengthened is the monitoring of these schemes to ensure that the allocated funds are actually spent on what they're supposed to be spent on. And the toilets, if they are constructed, they are functional, because I've myself seen toilets which are used as go-downs or storage spaces. People just don't use those toilets. They are either so dirty or so poorly constructed. So I think the intent of the government is very much there, but they do need to strengthen their monitoring, especially at all levels, to ensure that there's accountability in the system.
You know, before I bring in Rohini into the panel, Urvashi, one last question to you, and I'm quoting one of the panelists here in Delhi who said, toilet construction versus toilet use, very different things.
I think there's an increasing realization that infrastructure on its own is not enough, and I think that itself has taken a long time, because even today, you know, governments, when they report on indicators, it's all about number of toilets constructed or number of water facilities installed. So I think that realization is coming quite slowly, that actually the most important part is getting people to use those toilets and getting them to change their behaviors. So I think there are organizations, there are NGOs, there are even some local governments which are very proactive, which have been able to bring about this change slowly over a period of time. But I must say it's been a very slow journey, and I really think this realization needs to come in a much stronger way, that just providing toilets or just sanctioning toilets or sanctioning facilities is really not going to get us where we want to get to.
Okay, let me bring in Rohini Nilekani into this panel. Rohi, we'd all love to get a sense of the kind of projects that your organization is funding, the low-cost innovative projects that are being funded in the water and sanitation space.
I think one very satisfying thing is that the demand for sanitation across India has really picked up for various reasons. People have understood the connect between sanitation and their own health, public health. So the demand is rising very rapidly. So we are at a well poised to take advantage of that demand and convert it into real usage of toilets and of course appropriate hygiene behavior along with it. So recently, for example, working with the government of Karnataka in a district called Davangere, we have set up a special innovative pilot on behavior change communication. The government all over the country has set up budgets, IEC budgets, which are to be used to spread awareness about the link between toilets and public health and family health. But those budgets sometimes remain unused because of a lack of a systematic approach to creating that awareness. And we did something very interesting with two organizations. We did a district-wide campaign, which now hopefully will be picked up across the state, using government's own budget and of course some of our money to get people to be in a very short burst. We sent a lot of material, a lot of dramas, plays. We did a lot of very creative material and sent it out to people, and we saw the response was very good.
Rohini, this has come up really very often now. Many are saying that a lot of success of any long-term sanitation project is really going to be behavior. Is there a sense that you're getting from your partner organizations about there being a rural versus urban divide as far as this is concerned?
I think obviously because in the people who don't have access to sanitation in cities are usually in densely populated slums, very clearly the demand there is very different. And if we can figure out, sometimes there it's really a problem of space. So you need to figure out much more community-based, community toilets and things. And we tried that quite successfully in a small town called Mulbagal. So yes, in some sense, the rural and urban demand is different. In rural areas, we still have a very deep-rooted sense that, especially among males, that it's much safer and better to go outdoors. So there is, I think, a slight difference there.
Rohini, in conclusion, I want to put the same question to you that I put to Kiran Majumdar Shaw at the start of this segment, perhaps in a different way. The water ecosystem is heavily subsidized by the state. The polluters are many, industries, corporate, the individual as well. But any answer to this problem really has to be a holistic one with everyone actually contributing in equal measures. Now, the government really has set up a target of 2019. Do you believe it's a target that's fraught with challenges and an unrealistic one?
I think, governments have been really trying very hard. I think it's up to, it needs civil society to participate in this because this is a huge challenge that we have. We have made significant progress going up from say 15% coverage to about 45% coverage or even higher in some states. There's a statewide disparity. I think the political will exists. I think the public demand exists. I think public finance has been committed. We possibly might need more because it is in everyone's interest that everyone has a toilet and uses it well. So I think it's a nice convergence of political will, public finance and backed by civil society efforts. I think the public demand is also up. Now is the time to really push the buttons on this. I think we're at exactly the right time because we don't have time to lose. Look at the impact on public health from our lack of clean water and access to sanitation. It's huge. So this is the right time to make a big push, I think. And I think it's happening.
Okay, fair enough. I'll have to leave it there. Rohini Nilekani, Kiran Majumdar Shaw, Rajeev Kher and Urvashi Prasad, thanks very much for joining us here on this segment of Clean Up India. We'll take a quick break and I'll do a quick round of solutions that the government could look forward to if it needs to achieve the 2019 target of Swachh Bharat.